Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 17th Masterclass with the MET Orchestra Musicians here at Lessonface, today featuring Chris Hall. I'm Katie Falk-Flores here with Lessonface, where we connect students with great teachers for live lessons and classes. In today's Masterclass, we will have 3 student performance and coaching sessions, followed by a brief Q&A at the end, so please enter any questions you have in the chat box, and we will address them after the performances. With that being said, let's begin. And now, in our first spot today, Chris Hall of the MET Orchestra will coach Quintel Gibson, a student at Cleveland Institute of Music, who will play Ride of the Valkyries and selections from Act 3 of Die Walküre by Richard Wagner.
Hi, nice to meet you virtually. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. A lot of technical difficulties, but we're here.
Okay, well, excellent. The Ride of the Valkyries, I can hear that fairly clearly, but the first excerpt you played faded out at the end. So would you mind playing that excerpt again? And then hopefully I get to hear all of it, because I didn't hear all of it. So it's basically sounded like the same. It's a hard thing to catch with this setup you have there and maybe your Wi-Fi at the moment. As far as that one goes, that's at a very dramatic moment. I'm sure you've listened to the opera. So, okay, so it's a fairly dramatic moment. It's needs to sound just a bit more menacing, I would say. And it's hard to tell absolutely everything. It sounded a little more jolly, perhaps, than you wanted it to, if that makes sense. Yeah. So just bum ba 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 bum bum ba 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 ba. You know, so I'm sorry, I'm not singing all the pitches right, but the dum ba 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 bum bum ba bum ba ba ba, and then generally, interpretively, usually almost every single conductor I've worked with playing this draws it out a little tempo wise at the end. So you could do a little bit of that, but don't go overboard. I think just a little more brutal sounding with the articulation helps. Luckily, at that point, you have Wagner tuba players helping you out with that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the basses and cello are playing it too, but I can't remember. All I can hear is the Wagner tuba and tuba at that point from where I sit normally. So anyway, would you mind playing it again and try for a little more forward motion and almost dare I say anger? Just it's a pretty intense moment. So
Okay.
I think the articulation sounded pretty good from what I could tell, but just
Okay.
no happiness really going on with this lick. Yeah, I'd have the last number of notes as you do the diminuendo. I can't hear them at all over the audio, so I'm gonna have to imagine they're there.
Might be playing them too soft.
I don't know. Yeah, why don't you try doing less diminuendo now and see if it helps.
Okay.
Okay, it's not great audio. That's about all we have to say with that particular. I think with some of these things, when there's a long note and then there are short notes and different tessituras, some things pick up and some things don't. But what I can tell is when you get to the E flat below the staff, that note, it seems like you could play that a little bit longer. Be bum ba 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 beam bum ba be bum bum ba be. So it's hard to get air in quickly there, but if you can do that, that would be great. Would you mind trying it again? Try to just make that more like a statement. The one, the second bar, right? The second bar. That's the big singing part of it after bum bum ba beam ba ba ba. Okay, so. All right, yeah. I still think you might be able to hold that E flat in out a little bit longer, but I was able to hear more of it that time, so that was good. Let's leave this one alone. Listen to it a bunch, practice it, listen to a whole bunch of different recordings, and if you can isolate that spot, just to get some ideas of what different conducting interpretations are of that, because there are many different ways of that being interpreted time-wise. And as long as you have come up with something that sounds very convincing, then that will work well if you ever play this on an audition, which might happen, So anyway, sounds good as far as I can tell. Now, if we don't mind, let's talk about the Ride of the Valkyries.
Quick question. Do you think you could tell me kind of what your concept is for making sure the sound is big but also very clear?
As far as the short notes or the long notes, or
just like everything, like the execution of making it sound very grand but also very clear.
I can imagine that you're articulating it really nicely and that the sound is pretty clear, but it's harder to tell. I could tell a lot more with the Ride of the Valkyries than that particular one, just okay. with this connection. Can we work on the ride? Maybe we can get sort of an answer to that basic question.
Yeah.
Would you mind playing the ride one more time, please?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds pretty good. I have a number of things to say. First, I'm going to tell you or ask you, is it in this room are fluorescent light fixtures rattling all over the place?
No.
Okay, because it sounds like they are anyway, but this is where we've got the connection best, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, because it sounds like you're making something in the room vibrate from what I can tell. So that's probably a good thing, meaning you're putting out enough sound. That's great. Okay. For my big impression with it is it sounds really good. It's just a bit on the slow side for one thing. I find in as far as many conductors like to do that section slower, but that's more of an old school tradition. Many and Most of the time it barely slows down at that point. It stays at the same tempo most of the time. Most interpreters that I've worked with have done that. Just kept it at the same tempo. So, and which means your tempo's slow, okay? And that's my impression. The other thing is, it sounds as if everything was a little more segmented than you wanted it. It sounded like every time you got bum 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 bum. So it was like beat 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 rather than bum 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 bum. I'm sort of singing it around the tempo you were playing it, but the line, if you can make the bigger arc of the line, that'd be great, because I think it's not far out of your reach, because it's not, you got all the notes there. Sounds good. So would you try to just make the connection, go a little further and play it just a tiny bit faster, unless you know that would take too much of a adjustment for you. But if you can play it a little bit faster, a little more forward motion and more of an arc to the line, forward direction. Don't worry, that happens to many of us. It's the last note, and yeah, that happens. But no worries. It sounded really good. You made the adjustments. It was good. I sensed much more forward motion going. There was more line going. I liked it. That made a big difference for me. I have only one thing, and I heard this every time, though, that you should be aware of, is when you play the C sharp and then the octave below, that make sure that C sharp that's in the staff, which was really in tune, okay? I mean, it sounded pretty in tune to me anyway. And then you play the next one, every time it was quite a bit sharp to the upper one. So if you got to pull a slide, you know, or unless your teacher tells you not to, or I don't know, just make it in tune, whatever it takes. That one was sharp every time, okay? Just, I mean, and sharp to the C sharp above. So can you just play that octave real quick? Just play. Okay, now you went a little too far, I think, but just you can mess with that on your own, okay?
Okay.
That's something we need to do right now. But that's something I just wanted to point out. It sounded really good, I thought. I mean, and did that make sense to you about the tempo and the forward direction?
Yes, definitely. I think it really made the excerpt come alive, because that's the big thing I struggle with. But like a lot of music that I play in general is like making it sound alive, like not just in my head, but like actually outside of Tuba. So that helps a lot.
Okay, well, yeah, the more you imagine what you want it to sound like, the easier it gets. You got to, as far as I can tell over this really not so great connection, you seem to have a very full, good sound from, but there is something definitely rattling nearby your mic or something like that. But it sounded good. I mean, many times when people play this, it's very easy to have that pickup to the bar sound like a duple instead of a triplet, and you're doing a triplet. It sounds right rhythmically, so that's good. The style seemed pretty good to me. But let me just say one thing as far as keeping the tempo up like that. If you're on an audition panel and somebody plays something slow and if like everything's slow, then they're going to be bored, the people on the committee. So you want to make sure you can demonstrate really good time and good forward motion. It seemed like you really didn't slow down that time, the last time. So that was good. So just make sure, keep, for audition purposes, if you play a really slow Ride of the Valkyries, it better be absolutely amazing. So otherwise, as after you've heard that like a million times, you want, yeah, so.
Okay.
I talk too much, so.
No, it's okay. I really like the way you think.
Yeah. Well, thank you. The other one, I'd love to hear it. Maybe we could work something out that you could play for me just one-on-one. We can get a better connection sometime. I'd be happy to do that. So if you want to play that again, so I could actually hear it, because I couldn't. Sorry.
I should be able to get a better connection some other time. I'm not sure what's going on today. Maybe everyone's using the Wi-Fi, I guess.
Well, feel free to send me an email through the people there at Lessonface, and we could try to do something separate sometime if you want. If you want to play that with a better connection, I would be happy to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely. I would really appreciate that.
Okay, excellent. Well, great to meet you and hear you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much for playing for us. And I apologize to everyone who noticed that. So there was some issues, technical issues getting going with that today that we haven't experienced in the past. So thank you so much, Quintel, for hanging in with us. That was his third device we tried. We got there eventually, and it was great for the coaching. With all of that being said, thank you both, Chris. Thank you, Quintel. Let's move on to our second performer. So, and now Chris Hall of the Met Orchestra will coach Michael Fleming, a student at Yale University, who will play the tuba solo from the third movement of Symphony No. 1 by Gustav Mahler and the Hungarian March by Berlioz.
Bravo. Real quick, the Mahler was so hard to hear. It was so soft, and maybe the miking, so I didn't really get to hear that so well. The Hungarian March was much easier to hear, but still not quite as loud as I think it could have been on the mic.
I can turn my gain up and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, just try to turn it up, just whatever it is that you have to do. It was very hard to hear the Mahler.
Would you like to hear the Berlioz as well?
Yeah, we might as well. I mean, if you feel up for it, that'd be great. Okay, now we know why we had it set at a lower level. Okay, so let's you might want to turn it back just a little tiny bit because that was a little, it really peaked a lot there, and on the higher notes. Um, okay, so a number of things with the Mahler, and it's hard to tell from perhaps because of I would you play the first number of bars of the Mahler just a tiny bit louder, just so that I can hear some things that I
Yeah.
just not pianissimo, not piano or whatever, just a little bit louder. Okay, that gives me an idea. This just has to do with pitch, because it's pretty good, but it seems to me, from what I can tell, that's why I had you play louder, just making sure it wasn't a microphone thing or what, or acoustical something. But it seems like your D naturals, the note you start with, is a little sharp to everything else. So, like, either get the slide out a little more or something. Most of this stuff, you can control this. Of course, you got headphones on too. That's no fun. I have such a hard time doing headphones, but sort of the life these days. But what I am noticing, it sounds like your Ds are a little sharp to the rest of what you're playing. So I really would like you to focus on making sure that's a good minor intonation, minor mode intonation. Make sure that the notes are in tune on the scale. That being said, just will it into place with your with your ear and your inner ear, and just make it happen. Because it's really close. I mean, it just sounds like if you start that D natural just a little bit sharp, and just make sure that it's not sharp. Let's try, just do the beginning again and just try that. I'm also going to say it sounded really good. Okay, so I'm just picking on the little things. Okay, but intonation's not exactly a little thing. Concentrate your ear on making sure that the E natural doesn't sound, it sounds a little bit like it might be a tiny bit low to the, your D sounds really, it seems really like better now. But it sounds like the E on the scale needs to hear him well. Okay, and you can then just keep going. Okay. That seemed a lot closer to what you probably want to sound like. It sounds good. It sounds comfortable, which is great. So that's very good. Sometimes, like on the way down, you're playing an F tuba, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think your G naturals sometimes on the way down, maybe we're a little on the low side for the. So spend a little time. I mean, there's a time to spend with the tuner, and there's a time to not spend with the tuner. We got to use your ear mostly, but tuners are helpful. I use them sometimes, and so what? Except when they lie. Just kidding. There's a really my favorite tuner app. I'm not getting paid for this. Is what's it called again? Tunable. Tunable. It's like a $5 app. I absolutely love that one. Yeah, I've got some wonderful tuners sitting around that I should probably put on eBay because it's just such a great app. So anyway, so but that can be helpful. But anyway, enough about that. It sounded very comfortable. Do you have any questions about this as far as anything you want to improve upon with this?
I definitely know that pitch is something I need to woodshed more with this excerpt in particular. I suppose the only thing interpretation wise I would be curious to know is, so I was taking a breath after bar 3, just because I kind of like having the connection between the two A naturals, like at the two different sections. But what would you have a different interpretation or something else to do with breathing?
I have a feeling you take pretty much the exact same breaths that I do, but I wasn't really paying. Nothing jumped out as you need to change it interpretively, phrasing wise, or anything. Make sure you sing through everything. That's the most important thing, I would say. Just make sure it's a nice, simple, beautiful song. Interpretively, though, it is a matter of some people really like that dotted 8th, 16th note to be very metronomic. And whichever way you want to do it, just make sure it's very convincing and sounds like it has a real thought behind it about what you want it to sound like. It didn't jump out to me as a like, oh yeah, I don't like the way he did that or anything. It sounded good in that manner. But that you can come up with your own. Some orchestras will want it to be very metronomic, and then if they want it stylized, they'll ask for you to, put the 16th note a little later. This is sort of a weird thing. It depends on who you're auditioning for. If you know that the band, they like to do everything really straight, then you do it really straight. If you know they have how do I put it? Everybody gets offended. If they like to do 16th notes later for certain styles, certain composers, then do that. Make that stylized decision on your own. But it has to be your own interpretation. That's the most. It generally stands out if you have an idea. More committees will be like, oh wow, that's a good idea. I like that idea. It works. So, but I can't speak for everybody.
What was the motion to beat 3 and then coming away from beat 3 audible to your ear? Like that's the kind of phrase I was going for, like going to beat 3 and then coming away.
I honestly didn't really pay that much attention to it. Nothing jumped out as being like, red flag. Okay, so it was good. Let's, in the interest of time, let's talk about the Hungarian March. Did you already adjust your gain back a little bit from the between those two? So you're like in between the initial and the second, right? Okay. Would you mind? Sorry.
Yeah. Let me play. How about I play the high part just real quick, just so we make sure it's.
Yeah, sure. Good idea. Yeah, that's fine. It's not maxing out. That's great. Okay, so with this, if you don't mind playing it again, it is a short excerpt. If you let's do it again so it's fresh in my mind. Good, really nice. Now the thing that is now, I'm able to really say this because this is a good mic setting, I think, wherever it's at right now, because I can hear pretty clearly. What I did notice is the bum 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 bum. You seem to be doing that rather than bum 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 bum. Make sure that the notes as you're going down don't die away and then come back up. For the lower notes are sounding less loud than the higher notes, which is a typical acoustical phenomenon. And I think you probably want it to sound a little more even dynamically, right?
I had an interpretation of like sort of down and up, but I might be going too far of like creating that decrescendo as opposed to just letting the natural acoustic do it for me.
Yeah, I think you should let the natural thing just happen. But there are some don't over exaggerate that. I think that's my advice. Many of my very fine teachers that I've been so lucky to study with have pointed out that we have to make sure as we go down that those notes are as loud as the higher notes, because the higher notes are going to speak louder much easier. Now, what you did with the beginning notes and then the low notes after the really high notes, right? All those notes had enough volume, but when you go it's too much going away and coming back. You need to like keep it driving because there's no dynamic marking saying that they're hairpin crescendos. My honest feeling is that you might be taking personal liberties a little too far. Just a tiny bit. Yeah. But it sounds really good. The articulation's good. Pitch is quite good. The only thing that I think you might want to consider is how long you're going to play the quarter notes in the first bar, and then later. I generally like this to have a little tiny bit of space in between notes and sort of emphasize the fact that it is French music. So it's not Germanic music. So you could think about putting a little more lift on those type of notes. When you played the eighth notes seemed very crisp and clean to me. So what you're doing there is fine, but think about it and make up your own mind. But whatever you do, make sure it's consistent as you go. That's the only thing.
If time allows, could I play the first phrase to cover those two major points?
You can play that. You can play the whole thing if you want. I mean, we've got your time. My time is your time.
I'll play the whole thing.
my phone is your phone. Yeah. In the last bars, are you trying to do like a sort of subliminal crescendo there?
Yes.
Okay. Because I can hear it, and I don't think I like it personally. Okay. That's we can all have our own ideas, but there's no crescendo written. Mm-hmm. And sometimes sometimes we do too much in trying to interpret. There are times it's like And then sometimes we make decisions that we later regret, like in the moment, like, oh, whoops, no. And then you listen back to the recording, and you're like, well, that didn't work. Yeah. So, so anyway, my advice would be just keep the direction going, but don't make a big deal about the landing point, because there's still a lot more coming. It had the movement hasn't ended yet. Anyway, the section hasn't ended yet. Actually, the harder part of this practically is the thing starting on the F sharp. That with that passage, if you can remember which buttons to press, that's my problem with that one. Is that an A sharp, A natural? Yeah. So anyway, so that's not the ultimate landing point. I think the amount of what dare I say juice that you put on the higher notes before you started messing around with this time, that was plenty, and I liked it. This time you sort of backed off on the upper notes, I think, and it was a little less exciting to me. Okay, it was like right bum 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 when you that's like the beginning, I think, and then you can keep it going like you were doing before, and you didn't have it grow, which I liked. So don't dull yourself too much, because I'm telling you information. Okay, so that's about it. And I don't know if it was a great transmission here from the first bar, because it sounded a little out of context. It sort of had that lag or something. So I can't comment on that right now, but it did. Basically what you were doing before was just fine, but it's something to consider: the length of the notes and how much space you want to put between them. I would, depending on who you're auditioning for, you may, if you really want that job and they play everything really long, you play it really long if you want it. But don't forget your own personality in this, So what type of F tuba is this anyway? I'm curious.
This is a Meinl Weston 2250.
Okay, maybe that should be on my Christmas wish list. That sounds good.
I love this F tuba. I have the Bobo mouthpiece. Yeah, I think I like this tuba a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. That was fantastic. And thank you, Chris, for coaching Michael through that. We really appreciate that. Thank you for both of your excerpts. In that case, let's go ahead and now put Ben on the spot. And now, as our third performer of the day, Chris Hall of the Met Orchestra will coach Ben Pyro, a member of the New York Youth Symphony, who will play the overture to Die Meistersinger and Handel's Oboe Sonata.
Okay, bravo. Sorry, I muted myself. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Okay, this Handel sonata, I don't know it really well. I'm concerned about this. What is this? Lucky me, my printer is running out of ink, so I can barely read this. So I had to do a screenshot of the thing you sent me and then try to print it that way, and that didn't help. So is this first movement adagio?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I couldn't tell time-wise what was going on sometimes. Sometimes it seemed like it sort of lagged a little bit, maybe. So I try to make sure that, and with all the ornaments you're putting in and stuff, that it really, somehow the time comes through a little bit better. It seemed like it got a little on the soupy side.
Sure.
But it sounded good. I wouldn't mind hearing a little other parts of this at some point, but
Absolutely. Yeah, whatever you want.
okay, but that let's save that for a little bit first. Thank you for playing Die Meistersinger, the one excerpt that basically takes at least 1 to 17 3,000 lessons to actually get to the point of being sort of okay. All right, I'm being a little silly, but it does take a long time to get that to a really great place. And it sounded very good. First comment, a little bit slow. You know, all that stuff that's going on that we can never hear because we're going, yeah. So anyway, so that little, and this goes for like anybody. I don't know if you were watching the rest of the other stuff or probably just warming up, but when playing an audition, the slower you play something, the more chances your audition committee might be falling asleep. And I am not exaggerating at all, maybe a little, but so anyway, just keep the tempo a little fresh. The notes all sounded really good. Would you mind playing that again, since it's just at least yeah, just keep I think it'll also help. A slightly faster tempo is in some ways a little easier to keep really steady, on the more steady side. So okay. I like it at the faster tempo. I couldn't tell if this was a little zoom lag or something going on. The beginning sounded like it was a faster tempo and then a little bit slower. So that might have been the case. But would you just play the first part of it? I may cut you off. I just want to see, I want to see if the time, something like that. Good. All right, so there's a couple of things I think I'm noticing. I'm going to try to be as I'm hoping this is what I'm perceiving, and if it's correct. I guess that one thing, bum beam bum 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 bum. Make sure that those 3/8 notes leading up, as soon as they start becoming just a tiny bit late, you're setting yourself up for the snowball to keep going that way. So sometimes those notes were a tiny bit late, and then it just started to settle back into the old tempo. Okay. Now, who's your teacher? I'm sorry, I forget.
I studied with Andy Rogers, is my teacher here at school at Western Connecticut State University, but I also have been studying with Derek Fenstermacher since like the summer.
Okay, very good. All good folks. Great players. So the all right, here's something. So currently you're studying with who?
Andy Rogers and Derek Fenstermacher.
Okay, both of them. Okay,
Yes.
not in person though, right?
No, Andy and I, we can have sometimes in-person lessons because of my recital coming up, but then Derek has all been virtual.
Okay, excellent. All right, so it seems to me, and this is what I can tell, is sometimes your valves are not, your fingers are not getting down on your pressed down on time, or released up on time. For those they have to be down before you blow and up before you blow the note. Because I'm noticing it, I think this is what I'm noticing, because it's your articulation sounds great, but if those valves are not quite there, then there might be a little minute timing issue. And this is the kind of thing that not a day goes by when I play the tuba that I don't think about it, because there's always something like, oh, man. Yeah, so it's like every day you gotta, so make sure your valves are on time with all this. Would you mind just playing a little bit? You don't have to go all the way up to the scale part. Just keep this in mind. Just start the beginning, the first half phrase or whatever of this, and see if the valve timing thing, for my perception, is relevant. Yeah. I did you make a conscious adjustment to make sure?
Yeah, I think I was starting to use that technique. I think probably an Arnold Jacobs comment or Gene or something about this really slow valves at the slurred section, the legato section, and I maybe was applying that to the beginning, which was then kind of pulling me in the wrong direction.
Well, okay, excellent, because that is something that was brought up to me by Mr. Picorni, and I believe Jay Friedman said something about it, and that was a Jacobs thing, but just make sure that it's got to be fluid, but they have to be there on time. So my ears told me that as you bum 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 bum, like on those ones, sometimes it crept in like just once, and it was pretty minor. So you're making the adjustments, but you split the difference. Make sure that is not how do I put this, hindering your efforts. Okay, so it sounds very good. All right, so couple of things I really need to talk to you about. The trill. What are you lip trilling the trill?
No, I'm doing a valve trill between 1, 2, and 2. Okay.
Well, it's amazing. It's really, really good. It's super fast. I almost think that it's a little tiny bit too fast.
Okay.
And a little too flashy. Speaking of slow valves, if you've got a clarity that's that good up there with a trill that's that fast and you're doing it, If you slowed it down, it might sound even cooler, unless that potentially makes it harder for you, in which case do the other one. But what I did notice is you go yeah 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 ba, yeah 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 yeah, it starts really fast, and then it just sort of like and then it's like, oh, what about the other notes right at the end before it actually resolves? And it sounds like it's like a real huge crowbar there between trilling, not trilling, and then resolving. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but not that much. It just it's like hitting fifth gear in the car, and then you're like shoving it into second, like real quick. The whole thing goes like that. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but for the point, it sort of jumped out. Okay, but the trill is amazing. But don't make that the highlight of the thing. Make the beauty of song of the whole thing be the thing that really brings your ear in. Do you enjoy playing this excerpt?
Yeah, I like it a lot. At first, I was kind of like, okay, great, like it's not that special. But like the more I get into it and the more I realize how much there is to it,
Yeah.
it's like motivating to try to get all of the things that I want to do.
Would you, if you just take it again, play the whole thing, have even more fun with the beauty of the song, just because it sounds like you're technically right there as far as the notes go, and just go into the really imagination of what you really want it to sound like.
Okay.
And have fun. Yeah, good job. Bravo. Yeah, that sounds good. Couple the record yourself doing this a couple times. Maybe listen back. This is being recorded, right? So we can, maybe if we can get copies of this, I wouldn't mind hearing how I'm doing as a quasi coach sort of person too. But you might want to listen to your trill and think about it. And also, if you can listen back to this, you will also potentially pick out the things that you could make a little bit of improvement on with timing of things. You're just a little bit late on that second bar of those pickups. Bum 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 bum. Make sure, and I sometimes I think of this in two,
Right.
so that just it's there's so many different layers. I mean, the violins are sitting there doing all that stuff. It's just that like people like Pat Sheridan can play on the tuba, but I can't. So that there all that's going on there. So if you think about it in bigger beats and make sure that nothing's like late. But the other thing is you don't want something to be early too. Early's just as bad as late. So in fact, sometimes it's even worse than late. So what was that Leon Fleischer quote somebody just shared recently as a really great rhythm? I'm paraphrasing. As a really great rhythm is playing as late as possible without being early. What was it? I have it written down somewhere, but it's like playing as late as possible without being late, something like that. So anyway, a pretty deep quote, but if I can't paraphrase it, that doesn't help, does it? So anyway, so sometimes some stuff was a little early. So like sometimes your trill, you'd resolve it a little early, and that you really need to listen to that though, to figure out what you're doing. So it sounds elegant and not like a trick, horse and pony show type of thing. Okay, it's an amazing trill, but getting out of it is the thing I think you might want to do some fiddling with. But great playing, very nice. Time is the essential thing you're going to have to work on with this, and don't worry, it doesn't go away. You still you have to keep on keeping on with this. You might want to think of doing some different breath choices in the second part. Just mess around, and actually feel free to contact me. We can blab about that. I was worried because like two people were going to play Meistersinger, I thought, or like two people. Oh, this is going to be like a long day.
The ride originally, and then we talked and figured out.
Yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, yeah, but feel free to email me or something. So send me a message. But that. With the second part, there's some different breath choices that I think you can make. I don't have the music in front of me right now, so I'm not going to talk about that. But we can talk about that later. There, some things that make it easier to get through. You're doing fine with it, but I think there are there's little ones that I think make the direction go a little better that I choose to do. It makes my life a little easier when doing it. So what was I going to say? Make sure to not sink way too much into that first note, that first G, and whatever that letter is, the G that starts after the trill and beat 4. So it's really easy to sink into that in volume. So much. Think about sinking into it volume, but that it keeps going for all the notes that are coming up next. Think of the longer line, which you're doing a lot of. I'm just gonna say, just don't make sure it's not too much of an explosion at the beginning. So cool. All right. Have I confused you enough yet?
No, that makes sense. The trill thing really helps too, because that's one thing that I will go back and forth on a little bit when I'm practicing.
Yeah, just mess with it. You will find it. Record yourself, and you'll come to you yourself and you will figure out the right thing to do. But I mean, it's an amazing trill though. It sounds fantastic. So really, I mean, I am jealous. So anyway, so let's do any other questions about this, or do you want to talk handle and play some more handle?
No, I think that's giving me a lot to think about. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, that's the effect I have on most people. I just flood them with thoughts, and then they can't even do anything anymore.
Right.
I'm just kidding. All right. Well, good. Well, bravo. Great to hear you.
Thank you so much, Ben, for performing for us today. And thank you, Chris, for coaching Ben through all of that. That was fantastic. I am going to go ahead and open it up for any questions coming in. Please put them in the chat right now. Put them in the Q&A, whatever makes sense. We would love to be able to answer those now. So my first thing is, while we are working on this, is Chris, could you talk a little bit? We got to have a little bit of an interview beforehand. And one of the things that came up was efficiency being so important for playing the tuba. Would you be able to talk a little bit about why efficiency is so important? I'm putting you on the spot here.
What I was talking about was the efficiency of air and breathing and getting a really good vibration with your lips, getting the right speed of air for the tessitura you're playing, and just being really efficient. Again, it's hard. I don't know. It's just sometimes, some days, I don't know. There was a while ago that I was found that, like, wow, I'm really getting into this. This is really efficient. And then like the next day I was like, this isn't as efficient. Now I want to get back to that. And then it took me a long time to get back to, so striving for efficiency, I try to do that as much as possible.
No, that's really helpful because I think that is something that we lose track of. I mean, obviously we're here to make music, but if something works better than, and in this case, obviously efficiency is key, especially when playing the tuba, it seems like. I mean, that's true for any instrument, but to really keep that as a priority when you're playing, to maximize the musical potential without wasting energy with other things, it sounds like. Or it could be completely taking you out of context, but that's what I got out of that.
Yeah. Well, I tend to ramble a little bit, so it sounds like a pretty good interpretation of what I said for the most part. But one never knows. I can confuse people pretty quickly. So,
question on the difference between playing tuba in operas versus playing in a more symphonic setting. Are there any real differences for you when you're approaching those works or those performances?
I guess the one of the interesting things is I find the orchestra that I'm so lucky to be a member of, the way the Met Orchestra plays, I think our approach is semi-similar to opera as it is to symphonic when we play on stage, because this is the way the group plays, and depending on who's conducting us. I think generally it's pretty much the same thing. However, I will tell you that I was lucky enough to do a couple of performances with Chicago Symphony at Ravinia a few years back, and the trombonist told me, "You're a little late on that. You're a little late on that. You're a little late on that." So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm a little late on that. So I had to make an adjustment for that and and hopefully I did well enough for that. But different groups have different ways of playing. So yeah. So I had to make an adjustment at that moment. Hopefully it worked. So a saying a former teacher / colleague of mine from way back in school said to me was, in playing chamber music or music with any other people, do what the other person's doing and you'll never be wrong.
So it's less about any stylistic differences per se between opera and symphonic works, and really about playing well with the group and with whatever is going on.
Well, yes, and also stylistically, and basically, one has to do what the conductor wants for sure. That's sort of the basic thing. Is yes, maestro is one of the best rules in general. The interpretation, you go with what your gut is telling you interpretively. And then if you have any differences with your difference of opinion with colleagues, sometimes you need to talk about it, and you talk about it and you come to an agreement. And, if it's collegial, if it's a collegial matter, or with the conductor, basically you do what the conductor says. That's really a really good idea.
I'm sure that helps with a long career. So I have another question for you, and that is, do you actually have any favorite pieces, whether it's an opera or some other works that are like really your favorite things to absolutely play on the tuba?
Pieces to play on the tuba, opera or otherwise. Oh God, opera-wise, Der Rosenkavalier by Richard Strauss is perhaps the greatest piece of music ever written. And if you ask almost every orchestra member in any opera orchestra, most of them will say Rosenkavalier being like at least in the top 5 operas. But there are many great operas. But as far as playing, that one's just fantastic. Alban Berg's Wozzeck is also, Rosenkavalier and Wozzeck are tied for my 2 very favorite operas. very different works, very different composers. But I love those in the operatic repertoire. I actually really enjoyed something we got to do last season. What century is it now? In the 2019-20 season, we did Philip Glass's Akhenaten, which I loved. Not everybody did, but I loved it. Had a very fun tuba part, great bass trombone part. Oh God, yeah, and great everything. I really enjoyed that. Music though, play on the tuba. In the quintet world, there's a brass quintet world. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'd love to get to do more of. The Bozza Sonatine is a very cool piece of music and very challenging, very fun to play, but very challenging. I like that one. Oh yeah, you actually made me think of something. Some pieces by Edgar Varese. I'm a big Varese fan. I love Varese. Yeah, don't want to listen to it every single day of my life, but when I do, I really get into it. Trying to think. Soloistically, well, I've been doing a lot of playing Bach cello suites and other Bach stuff during this period of hanging out by myself with my tubas all the time. So I've been doing some other things that I've neglected to do as much of over the past number of years. So I've been getting to do a little bit of that, and that's been fun. But I'm looking forward to getting back to playing with others, and we will be doing that fairly soon, some of us. So there'll be a concert coming up on, I believe it's March 28th, pre-recorded, but we'll be doing something soon. So
wonderful. Okay, I have one last question for you right now, and that what are the instruments that you are playing in the pit when you're playing at the Met?
Most of the time lately, I've been playing the 6-quarter thing, this Eastman York copy, which is great, the 836. I like it a lot. For some other repertoire, and this is the horn I won the job on, is a Hirschbrenner HB2P, which is a 4-quarter tuba. I love it, even with all its idiosyncrasies. It has a lot of great aspects. F tuba wise, I'm still on a search. I'm on yet another search for F tuba. And I do play a lot of cimbasso, and now that it's become part of my role, it's probably what should have been played for a long time anyway. So finally, the Met has purchased a cimbasso, and I play a Meinl Weston cimbasso in F with 5 valves, and yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, that's amazing. The cimbasso is so fun, I have to say, from a compositional standpoint, to have that really aggressive low brass tone that you can get out of that. We have another question asking about what age should kids start tuba, and do you start on another instrument first from a flute player?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I mean, you can start whenever. I don't know. I've known, like, my one of my very fine teachers didn't start until he was like playing music at all, or tuba, like he was like 16 or something like that. I can't remember. And he's one of the best tuba players and teachers I have ever worked with. That's Fritz Kenzig. I can't remember exactly when he started, but he started really late. A lot of people, I mean, it depends on if you can pick the thing up and find, I mean, basically with these stands that exist these days, you can have a tuba stand, you can lower it down, people can start playing as long as they can get their hands around it and stuff. 10 years old, something like that. I started when I was 10 years old, played the baritone for a year, and then switched to tuba. And I was the skinniest, lightest, not that tall. Well, I was sort of tall, but I was skinny. So I didn't look like your stereotypical tuba player, as they used to.
Yeah, so we have some of our attendees commenting that they often started like on euphonium, and transitioning to tuba as a natural sort of direction to go. We have another question about, and we got to talk a little bit about this in the interview, about how you warm up.
So
the question is, if you have time, can you please talk about how you warm up?
it's different every day. I just so I do some things. I don't do the same warm up every day. That's I'm not everybody is that way. So for some people, doing the same warm up every day is their thing, and some people doing a different warm up every day is their thing, and I'm one of those people. So.
Do you have thoughts on auditioning on smaller tubas instead of a 6/4?
I am not sure. I think it depends on the band who you're auditioning for, and what the repertoire is. I think sometimes a 4/4 horn is plenty of bandwidth to. I mean, when I guess. I don't know. I was just playing a 4/4 horn when the audition came up, and I hadn't found a 6/4 horn I liked as much as mine. So I never. And at that point, I had no money to choose one or the other. I would have had. I mean, to keep both. So I didn't want to get rid of this one, so I didn't. And I don't know. It worked. 4/4 horn works generally very, very well for the bulk of the opera repertoire. So, especially if you're trying to impersonate a cimbasso every so often, having a 6/4 horn, you're never going to be able to do that. Yeah. See, I talk too much. Told you.
No, that is very helpful. So I think we are just about out of time for today. So I just want to say thank you so much again, Chris, for coaching everyone. Thank you, Ben and Michael and Quintel, for playing for us. Thank you again to everyone so much. Thank you to Chris again for your coaching. And if you have any last questions, we probably have just a second, but if not, thank you all so much for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful day and that you stay well out there.